All right, and here we are for another live Q&A called Mentor Minutes. So I'll take your live questions over here on Facebook for those of you that were able to tune into the viewing. And for all of those other ones, I've got questions that I've received offline that I will get on the next episode. Just drop into the comments wherever you're listening to it at, whether it's YouTube, whether it's the podcast, and I'll be sure to get them on the next episode of Mentor Minutes. The first question that I received offline is a tough one, and I wanted to get to it right away just because it's a situation, unfortunately, many of us will find ourselves in at a certain point. This particular gentleman, who will remain anonymous, switched jobs. It moved actually 900 miles away into a small company, a small organization that had an aging manager, a competing office manager, and a couple of employees, so a small organization. The issue is he can't get any of the real policies in place. When we talk OSHA safety guidelines, when we talk other legal requirements, he has a background of 10 years in it, and the organization will not get it into place. When he takes it up to the corporate level, HR basically pushes him back down to the regular level to deal with that particular situation. So he has no support from management, he has no support from his boss, he has competition as far as peers are concerned, and quite frankly, he has unsupportive employees, as well. And so what my advice in these situations, I tell people, you want to look for another job when you aren't learning anything and you don't have any abilities to move up in the organization. Now, this situation certainly fits those criteria. You're not learning anything. You're not able to put into place even what you want to. Sadly, there will be times in your career when you make the aggressive move and it turns out to be a mistake. The quicker you acknowledge it and the quicker you react to it, the better it is. I've had that happen in my career where I moved from a large company to a small company, and 3 months in, I knew it was the wrong move. I was brought in to change the culture, yet it turns out the person that brought me in was the person that was inhibiting the culture from being put into place to begin with. I found out 3 months in that it was the wrong move. It was reiterated another 3 months after that, and over the course of time I was able to move on, but it took another year after that for me to move on. So my advice in this case is when you find that you've made a mistake and you moved into the organization and it's not a correct fit, there are problems, you're not going to be able to move up, you owe it to yourself to pull the plug on the mistake as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it just gets worse. So take a look at other opportunities that are within a radius. I know you moved your family in this particular case, so that's terrible that you have to put them through that. But the reality is you have to make that move. You could get fired at any moment. There could be some sort of restructuring that goes into place. But really, you're not happy. You're not developing as a leader, and you don't have any guarantee that you're going to move up in the organization. So sadly, that's my advice. You are welcome to follow up with me through direct message. We can talk through a few things if you want help with that. But that's that hard situation that unfortunately, that's my take on it. Tina asked the question, how do you deal with a manager who micromanages the staff? Tina, my advice as far as micromanaging managers, and many bosses are like that, I'll also flip this around, and that is many leaders who are tuning into this right now are micromanagers as well. We often get promoted because of our abilities to do a great job with what we personally control. And what happens is we get promoted and we then try to control 10 people like we controlled ourselves. The way out of micromanagement for yourself and for your boss is to try to schedule updates. What you do is you corral that micromanagement a little bit. So you take the manager that might be over your shoulder constantly and you say, hey, why don't I come into your office an hour from now, 2 hours from now, and give you an update on what's going on. So you bring some structure to that micromanagement. What that does is that initial structure, however you can do it, like I say, I'll come to you in half an hour with the update. I'll come to you in 45 minutes, whatever short period of time, you're building trust. So then it becomes, what about 3 hours from now? Okay, what about at the end of the day, I'll let you know where I stand, I'll bring what I've got over to you. So you're still, truthfully, they're still micromanaging you to a large extent, but you've exercised a certain level of control, which gives you some sanity and ability to get some things across the finish line, and you're starting to build that trust. Because what happens is when they realize that they can step away from you and you're going to do a good job, then they don't feel the need to micromanage, and you can stretch those timelines and those updates out further and further and further, and that can be hugely helpful in you getting more done and for the leader to actually get more done as well. You do the same thing if you're worried about micromanaging your team. Set up clear updates and then start extending them out. It gives the team a chance to kind of fly on their own, and who knows, maybe you'll find that they can get along without you in way more things than you expect. Thanks, as always, for your time and advice. Thanks, Janine. Always good to see you here. It's late enough in the day here on a Sunday afternoon for you to catch me over there in Australia on Monday morning. Mark has the next question, and it's, do you think being a leader can be learned or taught? Or is it something that you must innately have? Either you have it or you don't. So, Mark, I'm like, I always hate this question, Mark, just to be completely honest with you on it. I dislike it. Yes, it's absolutely something that can be learned. When we talk about learned versus innate, for instance, anybody out there can learn to play at scratch golf, par golf, not, right even par. It takes work, it takes effort. Now, some people can come to that very easily. Those are the people that have the innate talent. But I think it becomes an excuse for other individuals to not put in the work to learn how to be a leader. Nothing in leadership is some sort of magical thing that somebody can't learn and can't get better at. Now, when you are talking about the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, all right? Yes, maybe you do need some innate talent to get from the 99th percentile to the 99.9th percentile. But I don't think that's what we're talking about. If we could get leaders up to the 80th percentile, I think the whole world would be a much better place. But you can get to the 99th percentile by putting in the work, putting in the study. And so I believe that leadership is something that can absolutely be taught for somebody to be not even just effective, but for somebody to be a great leader. They just have to work on it, and they just have to have the resources. And you coming here and looking at this sort of thing, that's exactly what you need to do to become a better leader, is look where you can gain some knowledge, look where you can get exposure to some new ideas on things, try them out and learn, and you'll develop your leadership muscles, shall we say, to bodybuilder sort of strength. Great. I dislike the question, but at the same time, it's good for everybody out there to hear it. Oof, sorry. Abbas has the next one. It's, how do you deal with a hyper angry manager? The first thing to do when you start dealing with somebody who is emotional and angry is to really get back in touch with your center and you being calm. What you don't want is you don't want to throw extra gasoline on the fire by meeting anger with anger and frustration. Okay? You also are careful in regards to how you convey your dissent for whatever it is that they're saying, because oftentimes they are angry and you need to tell them why they don't need to be angry or why it is misplaced. And so what you do is you first acknowledge where their opinion is coming from. Hey, I totally understand where you're coming from on this. We were just trying to do this, such and such. And that leads into the next thing, okay? So you're calm, you're agreeable, but you are solution focused. The number one thing is solution focused, all right? What happens is anger is very similar to depression. You can wallow in it. It almost becomes kind of a self-perpetuating sort of thing. And many of us have felt that in our own lives, where we start getting angry and then we just get angrier and angrier and angrier. Same thing with depression. So what you want to do, the way to get out of that sort of cycle, is through action. So they are angry about something. What is the next action you can take to start fixing it? What is the solution that you can propose? So don't get focused on the problem or what made them angry in the first place. Get focused on the solution and start working towards action. So you would in the face of a manager coming to you with anger, you would go, nope, I totally hear what you're saying in regards to that. We were trying to do this, but that didn't work. What I'd like to do is this. The next step that I would like to take is this. I think that we should do this. Does that sound like a good idea? And so you get them focused away from the present onto the future, where they don't have to be angry about something. Try that technique out. Don't get me wrong, it takes a little bit of practice, and I hope you don't get a ton of practice, Abbas, but sadly you may get plenty of practice, but you will get better at it. Meet them calmly, be agreeable where it's appropriate, and then be solution focused. That's how you deal with an angry manager and get through that situation. Susan has the question, and it's how to hold employees accountable when they know we are not in a position to let them go. Oh yeah, we are already short-staffed and having trouble getting new employees. So, it's a position I want to say I've been in before as well. It is also a situation where there's some compromise to be made, I want to say almost on both sides. And I'll get to the second side of it right there. The thing is you want to go ahead and start the process, Susan. So hold them accountable to expectations. Communicate those expectations. Get feedback from employees on those expectations and why they shouldn't be met. Part of this right there is already throwing out to them that they have no excuse other than insubordination and laziness for not meeting those expectations. So you're playing a little subconscious game with that as well. But where appropriate, also start the progressive discipline process. Okay? What will happen, and I've seen this happen many times before, is what'll happen is somebody gets thrown to the wolves. That may be that somebody gets suspended and they realize, holy smoke, I could potentially get suspended without pay for this. Or, sadly, somebody gets fired for it. The thing that you need to balance these things out with is the performance decrease that you're seeing across the entire organization versus the cost of that one person who is the worst offender in regards to this. Now, this is tough, but you are being fair. You are explaining the expectations. You're working with them. So this isn't being unfair at all. It is sticking to your guns. Holding employees accountable takes effort. You get what you tolerate. So hold them accountable, start working up the progressive discipline ladder. What happens is when one person gets fired, everybody flips around. I've had it happen. I've told this story. I haven't told it in a month or so, where there was a procedure that went into place that the entire department was against a decade or so ago in my career. And there was no reason they couldn't do it. It had to do with a reservation process and a particular check that they needed to do. And there was a number of things. We created checklists for them. We talked them through. No, we can't do it. We started writing people up. It took until one of my best employees was suspended for a day. And then magically, all of a sudden, across an 80-person department, we went from having one of these incidents and one of these write-ups every day, if not twice a day, to having 3 over the course of the next month. When they realize you're serious, they will come in line, but they will play chicken with you, Susan. And it's not fun, and that's why you try to be as fair as humanly possible with it. But what can happen is if you have an 8-person team and they are operating 20% below efficiency, losing one person and gaining that 20% back over 7 employees is a net benefit. And you can eventually bring some people in. The other thing is when you get short-staffed, and I'm seeing it all over the place in lower level jobs. You walk into a convenience store, you walk into a McDonald's, I walked into a restaurant, hiring. And here in the States, the employment level is very low right now. So you see that bubble up from the low end of the wage scale, but it will bubble up a little bit higher. So a lot of you may find yourself in a similar position where it's very hard to get new employees in. What you need to look at is your training. So what would it take for you to be able to expand the pool of applicants and be able to bring people in? So A, hold people accountable and don't be afraid to let somebody go. Hey, letting one person, maybe you set that threshold and then after that I can't let anybody else go. Maybe that's the case because you've got a business to run. I completely understand that. But what can you do from a training side to expand out the pool of employees that you can potentially bring in? And that's something that almost all of you out there need to look at when we start looking at the next 6-9 months down the road. I think the labor pool is going to get tighter and tighter unless we face some sort of slowdown. So take a look at that, at least for those of us here in the States. I know around the world there's some different things as far as employment and the economy is concerned. I am caught up on questions right now, so if you have any questions, drop them down and I'll get to them in real time. I do have one to get to that I received offline through email, and that is, what is the best way to deal and respond with rude team members? The best way to do it is directly, honestly, transparently, and in the moment. So when they engage in whatever their rude behavior is, pull them aside. hey, Cameron, just so you know, there's a better way to phrase that. When you phrase it like that, it comes across as such and such. That I'm sure wasn't your intention, but that's how it comes across. So you deal with that rude behavior. You deal with it up front. Half of the rude behavior that people exhibit, they don't recognize as actually being rude. That's not their intention. The other half of that are those people that quite frankly feel like they can almost get away with it. Perhaps they're too emotional, don't get me wrong, but you need that conversation. You need that uncomfortable conversation to be something that's a negative motivator for them to engage in that behavior, so maybe they pause. So when you deal with that directly, you heard in that example that I gave, you reference the behavior. You reference how that may not have been the intent of the particular behavior or saying whatever it was. You give another alternative into how to express that later on for future endeavors. So you're acknowledging the behavior, you're giving them a little bit of an out, because they'll give themselves the out. If you don't say that probably wasn't what you intended, they will say, oh, well, I didn't mean it that way. That's classic. So go ahead and just get ahead of that. When you say it, you're able to carry on with your thinking process and just say, this is an alternative that you could use in those particular cases, okay? So give them that alternative. That's the key that so many people miss out on. Hey, when you say it like that, it's no good at all for anybody, and people leave it at that, but you don't give them any ideas on what they should use instead of that. A lot of times when we're talking rudeness, it's a buildup of frustration. So what you need to tell the employee is, hey, I understand you're frustrated in those situations. I want you to clam up and bring that frustration to me. That's what I'm here for as the manager, as the supervisor, as the director. That's my role. So if you have those frustrations, don't voice it to Cameron. Voice it to me, okay? So that's another route that you can go with angry employees, team members, what have you. A lot of anger today, bosses and everybody else that's out there. Again, any questions, drop them down in the comment section. I'll get to them right away. Next one that I received through direct message, and that was, do you think leadership requires to be at some key position in the organization? And this is a question I love. Leaders are born versus made. Not a big fan of that particular question, but I love this question. Leaders exist at all levels of the organization. I can walk into a company and I can spot the leaders usually within the first 10 minutes. And they are often not the people that have the leadership titles. They are the people that others go to when they have questions, when there's a crisis or some sort of problem, and they are the ones that are working with other individuals. They are exhibiting the servant mindset. Servant leadership gets talked about a lot, but anybody in any role can be a servant to their peers. So for all of you that want your first promotion in from line level up to supervisor and manager ranks, how can you be of service to those around you? Can you step in when you see that they're having issues? When they're overloaded with work, can you offer to take something off their plate? Can you give them some best tips as to what's been working for you from a sales perspective or any other, or dealing with other people perspective? Can you offer your insight and knowledge to them? Can you augment them and make things easier and better? When you do that, people want to be around you and they will bring you more questions, but they'll also bring you their knowledge as well. They will reciprocate you being a servant to them, and they will be, looking to be a servant to you, for lack of a better term, as well. I'll tell you right now, these Q&A sessions, I get a ton of information, feedback, working my own leadership muscle just by fielding the questions that are given here. So there is that reciprocity that's there as well. But yes, a leader exists at all parts of an organization. And it doesn't mean that they have a title that goes along with it, but they are the people that are relied upon by others in the organization to get stuff done. When there's problems or crises, they become the linchpin of those organizations, and eventually they get recognized for that. Great question. Another one, I got one last one here offline. If you have questions, drop them down in the comment section, and I'll end today's session if I don't get any more. And that is, when someone is not currently a leader, what can they do to prepare themselves for that role? So That was a tag on to that one, actually. So I talked about being a servant and offering your advice, offering your thoughts, offering your help. Those are all great. The other thing that you want to do if you want to move up the ladder is you want to look to your boss and see what you can take off of their plate. So this goes, if you're a director, you go to your vice president. Is there anything that I can help you with? Anything at all that I can take off of your plate? If you're a manager and you want to be a director, walk into the director's office. Is there anything that you need any assistance with? Anything that I can take off your plate so you can work on higher priority things? If you're a supervisor, manager, same thing. You're looking for, in particular, you're looking for some special projects that you can take some ownership over. You are looking to train people. That is a huge one and a huge opportunity. If you have new hires that are coming in, hey, would it be okay if I train one of them, or I take, the mentor role in this particular case? That's huge. But any other little things, cleaning up PowerPoint presentations for people, cleaning up reports, pulling data for the reports. These are all things. People come to me all the time. I want to move into management, but I don't have any management experience. And my question is always, well, have you trained any new hires? Well, yeah. Have you done any sort of presentations or helped put presentations together for the boss? Yeah, a couple of times. Have you pulled data for reports? Yeah, they come to me for some. Have you put the reports together? No, but you've pulled the data. You have a lot of management experience. Go out and look for it. Those little special projects, training in particular, those are your two big ones, and that's what builds up that resume where you aren't just the line level employee, you are the key line level employee who's been exposed to these management things, and then you can talk about them in an interview, and you've shown a track record at that point, which makes it easier to move you into those particular roles. Great question, love that one. Double checking to make sure I don't need to scroll any further. All right, I'll give 10 seconds for another question online. As I always close these things out, I'd love to have you sign up for the podcast. It's a great way for you to take these things mobile and on the road and just get that sort of leadership exercise for your brain, thinking about things. The specific situations may not apply, but there may be a corollary that you can take away, and these are always things that you can have in your back pocket should the situation arise. As you see on here, I get leaders from around the world and in different industries, and you'd be surprised how similar the issues are with what you deal with wherever you're at. All right, I'm going to sign off for today. I will see you all tomorrow on here. Have a great rest of your weekend, or for everybody in Asia and over on the other side of the date line, I hope you're having a great Monday morning. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.